this is part of the, well, this is one of the projects in the stage 1 part of the course. And this is one of the projects that you can choose in the project briefs folder. So once you've finished the photography course or project, then you're going to choose another project for project 2 and then another one for project 3. So illustration, the science of drawing could be one of those projects that you choose. So I'm going to go through this with you now, and hopefully everyone's got that on their screen. This is actually taken from the brief. So in the folder, there's a project brief, and it's got it's basically the steps that you need to tick off to meet all the assessment objectives for this project. So this paragraph at the beginning is taken from that brief. And as it says, before the use of photography, artists and illustrators used to record animals and things like that around them in the world. Instead of in photography, it was used, drawings were used, and that's how animals and plants were shown, instead of so easy nowadays, take a photograph. Leonardo da Vinci, he is one of the pioneering artists for this, and he studied the human anatomy, and we're going to go through that in a minute. But that's what this project is all about, is looking back at how they created the studies, looking back at historical artists and also contemporary artists and modern artists that use the same technique. And that's what I'm going to go on to next. So the step 1, you could do the steps in a different order, but I always think the same as the photography project, starting off with the artist research just gives you a little bit of idea of inspiration and which sort of route that you want to take your project onto the next step. So step 1 is the artist research, and you need to choose at least 4 from the list. And there's historical artists, there's 6 historical artists, and there's 5 contemporary artists here to choose from. It says at least 4, but you are welcome to do more than that. So you don't have to just choose, and sorry, on that note, try and choose a mixture. Don't just do all historical artists. Try and do half historical artists, half contemporary artists, so you've got a real mixture of different inspirations there. Okay, and very similar to the other project, so you need to complete 1 slide of research for each artist that you choose to research. You might want to do them all, and that's absolutely fine, but complete 1 slide. Include a brief paragraph of information, and then the most important thing is your own opinion of the artist's work. What elements of their drawings or their paintings, what elements, or their photography, sorry, what elements inspire you? What do you like? What do you even dislike? And what techniques might you take from their work into your own project, into your own drawings for this project? That's the first slide. Slightly different on this project, because you need to do a second slide. And on this second slide, create a response, a drawing response to those artists that you've researched. Okay, only a small one. You don't need to do a large A3 painting, oil painting in the same style. Just do a small one, because you won't have time, because there's a lot of steps to this project. So on the second slide, if you can add the image that you've been inspired by that artist, and then your own study in that style, or you could do a copy of that work, or you just choose a few elements and you look at a similar subject that the artist has looked at, but you sort of create your own in their style. Okay, so that's a response. So that's the second slide for the artist research that you're doing. Is that okay with everyone? I hope you can give me a thumbs up in a minute. So first slide for the research, second slide for a response to that artist research, okay? And as I said, choose at least 4, but you might want to do some more. That's absolutely fine. You've got the whole list. This list of artists is in the brief, in the illustration science of drawing brief, and they're all in there. So you can that it's all listed there in the back of it. But I will upload this PowerPoint as well. And combining historical and contemporary. Make sure you do that so you've got a real mixture. Here's an example of a student's work. So they've got their research and then an image that they've used from the artist's work, and then they've done their own drawing using just pencil on that, but that's absolutely fine. Small drawing, and they've really looked in detail at that artist's work. Okay, before this page they would have done a few more images of the artist's work as well. I haven't shown you that. And then here's another example of a student's work where it's a little bit more detailed, a lot more images of the artist's work and information, their own opinion. And then in the middle there, they've got their own studies in the style of the artist's work. So it almost looks like it's the same, you know, it almost, oh, is that the artist or is that the student's photos as well? So it's really interesting trying to create a study that's in response to that artist. Okay, so that's really important, and that's the second part of the artist research. So that'll be your artist research for this stage complete. Then we need to go, it's a little bit of an extra artist research. The main one is Leonardo da Vinci, and he was a pioneer to study the anatomy, the human anatomy. He did so many really detailed, really intricate drawings and studies of the muscles, of the bones, of I've only got a couple here, but there's some really, really fantastic scientific drawings that Leonardo da Vinci did. And if you think about it, all those years ago, it's incredible that he took the time and really studied every single detail. What's really interesting about his drawings as well, so make sure you, when you type it in, make sure you write Leonardo da Vinci's anatomy studies, because you'll get these drawings and then you get all of these little notes on the side where he's written like all these interesting scientific, mathematical kind of notes really around his drawings, which you might take as inspiration, and you might want to do something similar in your own project. So it is quite nice to see a little bit of a mixture of different artists' work. And Leonardo da Vinci, fantastic and very, very detailed work. So we would like you to again create 2 slides, one with research, images, and your own opinion again. So really do that on the first one. The second slide, we want you to really, again, maybe do a couple of responses, a couple of studies in a similar style, or copying one of his really detailed, intricate drawings on the second slide, okay? So again, getting some inspiration. What's you could try and do as well to make it a little bit interesting, instead of maybe drawing on white sketchbook paper like you normally would, you could maybe like coffee stain it, use a wash on the paper first, and then draw on top of that, which will create this really quite old style of well, the old paper, obviously, and then his drawing, your drawings on top will created quite a similar style to his work. So thinking about that as well, try not to just use a white, try not to use just a white background. Try and think of how you could work that links with the artists that you're looking at as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting how you respond to Leonardo da Vinci's work. So the first slide, research. Second slide, your own response. Okay, so that's Leonardo da Vinci. That's another artist. And then, oh, here's an example of a student's response to the Leonardo da Vinci research page. So this student's already done their research and images on the first slide, and then this is their second slide. So using watercolors to create a little bit of color, but mixed up, yeah, about 4 different Leonardo da Vinci studies there, mix it onto one for her own response. Okay, so that's another way of doing it. Okay, using washes, really detailed drawings in response to the artist's work there. Next step number 3. So we've got the first step, artist research, and you've got a list to choose from. Step 2, looking at Leonardo da Vinci's work. And then the final artist part of research in this project is looking at Carl Blossfeld's photography. Very different to Leonardo da Vinci's work, where it's drawings, really intricate. Photography on a real macro, close-up view, okay, framing the nature, looking at nature, but in a really structural way, looking at all the, basically the patterns, the detail, really interesting photography, which again, first slide, we want you to do 2 slides. First slide, images, information and your own opinion, what inspires you, what can you maybe take into your project. And then the second slide, so 2 slides again of this. Second slide, it would be great if you could do a response to Carl's work. So you may be taking photographs of, you don't need to go far, maybe it's somewhere in the garden, maybe it's on your local walk, trying to get to those really close up macro images in the style, in a response to his work. Have a little look at the lighting. Try and have it daylight and just one light source if possible, and really try and get those details in the objects, in the image. To get that, you have to be really in focus with your camera, so make sure when you're taking the photo that it's in focus, otherwise you might get this blurry film and it won't look as good. Once you take your photos, which are normally in color, you may want to change it, edit it a little bit, add a filter, change it to black and white, little play around with that. Again, it's your own response, so you might want to go into another direction. But yes, so a response to that, so a photography response for this artist would be fantastic if possible. Here's an example of a student's work in response to Carl Blossfeld's and work. And again, they've already done the research, and this is their second slide, the response. Really looking close up, macro, taking photographs, really framing it in an interesting way. One light source to have that shadow, that light and that dark to pick out the details. Okay, so that's an example. The next step, I hope everyone's all right. I know I'm zooming through this, so tell me to stop if you need me to, if I need to go through anything. So step 4 is a mind map of which theme that you want to go through. So you can choose from, well, a title in the middle, illustration, the science of drawing, and you can choose maybe bones, stones, plants or weeds, flowers or seeds. So those are the sort of subheadings that we would like you just to generate some ideas for each of these headings. So make a mind map, put one of those subheadings, all of those subheadings, sorry, and then create some ideas for each one, just to make sure you've looked at every single possibility of which route that you might want to do, okay? So I've got a couple of examples there. Bones could be structure, form, stones, texture, erosion. So like decay, you might have a brick wall that's sort of all just crumbling, and you might want to take some really interesting photos of that. Plants or weeds. I know what my garden's like at the moment. There's a mixture. There's a mixture of healthy looking plants and a few weeds that have got in there somewhere. So, but they're all plants. So I could go out there and take some really close-up photographs of a mixture of different varieties of plants you have in your garden. So you don't need to go far. Structure, look at the patterns. I don't know if you've ever seen like ferns when they're growing. They're a really closed sort of circular shape, and then as they open up, that's when the leaf sort of folds out, okay? But when you can get that structure of plants just growing and then folding out, that's a really interesting one. Flowers, you've got your petals, color, that's a really nice colorful one if you want to go in the flowers direction. Seeds, again, there's conkers and acorns everywhere at the moment, so you could maybe take some photos, some really intricate photos if you've got a forest nearby, or a river as well, so get some really interesting photographs near a river. So get loads of little ideas. You don't need to go far, just think about local local inspiration, really. You don't need to go far to get inspiration for these subheadings here. Once you've got some ideas down, and add some thumbnail images for inspiration, just tiny little images. You might find them on Google of what kind of you're trying to show in each of these ideas. Once you've done all of that, create a really nice, interesting mind map. Choose one theme from that list that you're going to go into in further detail. So just choose one from these subheadings that you've done a few little ideas for, okay? You might find as you're jotting down all of these ideas, you might find that one is really the strongest one, and that's the direction you want to go into. So choose that theme, okay? And you can send it to your tutor, and we will help you decide if you think you're struggling with direction. Please just keep uploading your work to your tutor, and we will help you with that, no problem. From that one theme that you've chosen from your mind map, you go into step 5, where you're going out and taking photographs of this kind of theme that you're going into. The top examples of students' work, again, the walls with moss growing out of it, plants growing out of these old brick walls. That was their inspiration. We've got skulls and skeletons, if you have anything like that around the house. But like old deer horns or anything, if you've got skeleton, if you want to go into that direction, please, there we go for it. Anything that you find that you have easily around you, okay? So take 10 to 20 photographs and make a thumbnail, almost contact sheet of those photographs, okay? You can use color or black and white, macro, so close-up detailed images would be great, and display those 10 to 20 photographs, thumbnail photographs, on one slide. Then on the next slide after that, we would like you to choose roughly about 5 of the strongest images from this photo shoot, this original photo shoot, and display those on a second slide. And just annotate and analyze the results. Annotate, write reflected notes on which photographs work best and why you've chosen those 5 to really show the theme that you're going to go into. Okay. When we're, ooh, there we go. So move this. Here's some more examples. Again, more images here. We've got, oh, I've put the flowers on. If flowers is your direction as well, remember you can go down the bones route, the stones route. You've got flowers, you've got plants. So whichever theme that you choose, please take some really, really good quality photographs and really detailed, the macro close up of whatever theme that you're choosing. So here's 2 different students' photographs, and then you choose 5 from those. And then from those 5, lead on to this next step. Step 6, where you're going to be, it's the initial drawing studies, and there are at least 4 small studies around like A5 size, small studies. And you're going to use quite traditional media for these drawings, using fine liners or pencils or watercolors, just to really just focus on getting those details of those from those images that you've selected. Okay, you might want to do the scientific style, add diagrams, little notes, little sketches next to the main drawing. Okay, just to create that scientific documentation, especially if you've been inspired by the artist that you've already looked at the beginning of the project. Okay, so that's the first drawing exercise. So at least 4 small drawings on this from those photographs. Here's some examples of the students' work. Two different students here. So yeah, 4 very small sketches, but you might want to add notes, as I've just said. Annotate these drawings. Remember to annotate every single study and every single slide that you're doing. Make sure you're really reflecting on the work that you've completed, but also saying how you might want to progress onto the next stage. What kind of ideas have you got for the next stage from these initial 4 drawings that you've already completed? You might even want to know what artists have inspired you as well. Okay, so they're your first initial drawings. Then the next step, going to do some more drawing, or well, material experimentation. Remember, stage 1 of this course is all about experimenting and exploring with materials and techniques. Some techniques you might never have used before, and it'll be great if you do that. Try and really push the boat out and really experiment and explore in this stage of the course. So material experimentation. You might want to do drawing, you might want to do painting, printmaking, so monoprinting, lino printing. You could take it into a digital experimentation with this part of the project, and just really have fun with it. Really try and use those 5 photos again, or you might want to use some other ones from your photo shoot. But just really experiment and explore, and maybe layer up different techniques. You don't need to just use graphite. You might want to use watercolors, then you go over with graphite and then add some fine liner on top of that as well. So layer up, experiment with using a variety of materials, oil pastels over a watercolor washed background. That'll create some really nice textures and layers to the piece. I've put on the bottom here backgrounds because I think it's really important. Instead of just using white sketchbook paper, you could start I had an old book here, and I've got some graph paper ripped out. You might want to draw or paint onto graph paper or old, if you've got an old books. I don't mean for you to use pages out of your brand new book, but if you got an old book from a charity shop or somewhere that's quite got that sort of brown discolored paper, you might want to draw on that or paint on that. Would be really lovely. Watercolors or acrylics on that paper. So use textured paper, use paper that's got a print on it as well. It could be that you use if you're going in the theme of flowers, you might have an old paper that's got flowers already on it, and then you draw on top with your scientific drawers, or you collage on top. So you could use lots of different things. Be really experimental and play around. You can use coffee as a wash, just like I mentioned before with Leonardo da Vinci. You might want to use that as a wash, a watercolor wash, and as I said, different papers. Be really experimental. Create about another 4 studies, another 4 small studies, A5. That would be great. Step 8. Oh, sorry, that was the student example here. That's the watercolor study. So they've got the image of what you're looking at, and then you do some studies from that same image or different images. Okay, so that's what you need to display. You might want to do a couple of slides for this. It depends how many drawings you do and how many studies you want to do. Maybe 1 or 2 slides to show your work off, your annotation and your images. Okay, step 8. This is just experimenting with materials, the step 7, but step 8 is all about your idea development now. So it's really refining your ideas. So create again another 3 or 4 sketches, just exploring different compositions, maybe different not compositions, but different materials that you might want to use together that you started in that last initial that step 7, but you might want to push it a little bit more into step 8, ready for your final piece. So this is where your idea development for your final piece is going to happen. All right, it could be digital. So you might want to go more into the digital route. You know, scan your drawings in and then maybe layer them up and create a digital final piece. So idea development, 3 or 4 sketches. Again, it's really important in all projects, but stage 1, to show your creative process, show your development from that artist research, initial photographs, ideas, into the experimenting with materials, and then into your final piece development. Try not to go just from artist research and straight to a final piece, because we really want to see the middle part. We really want to see this development of different ideas and the whole creative process. We want to see it from start to finish. So don't miss out this middle bit. Okay, it's really, really important for all your projects, not just this one, for all of the projects. Refine your best ones ready for the final piece. And annotation, make sure you really write your reflection on these ones of what materials you've used. Have you ever used them before? Is this a whole new technique that you've just suddenly experimented with and you really enjoy using? So make sure you note that down. What's worked well and what hasn't, and why, and what could you improve for your final piece that you've realized that you need to do in this development stage. Really important here, which artists have inspired you? And how's this shown in your work? So you've got to really say, like, is it the colors? Is it the way that you've put your scientific little notes on the side that's been inspired by Leonardo da Vinci? Is it the really intricate pencil drawing or the form that the flowers have made, say that's your theme, the flowers have made, is it anything like that that you think has been inspired from your artist research into this idea development and into your final piece? And then how do you plan to take these developments into your final piece, which is the next step? Step 9, your final piece. It could be any material you have already developed and studied in those previous steps. Take that into your final piece. So it could be painting, it could be drawing, it could be digital, as I've said before. It's whatever direction you want to take it. And as long as you've done all that experiment and all of that development, you'll know where you're going with it with your final piece. Okay, so create a finished illustration based on your theme. Aim for a really professional presentation with a strong visual impact. Think about where the project and what the project's all about is a scientific drawing. So try and link it to a scientific study that, again, you've been inspired from the artist's research. So a scientific style of illustration would be great if you can try and link it back to that. And remember what artists you studied and take all of that into your final piece. Make sure, this is really important, what I've written there actually. I thought I had another slide to show you that. I think I do next. Is make sure you document the whole making process of your final piece. Because again, as I've just said, showing the whole creative process of this, of your work is really important. So say you've done a painting, an oil painting, make sure you show the process, and it could be through photographs, maybe 5 or 6 photographs taken at different stages of you creating that final piece. So it could be the initial sketching, the initial outline, then it's the first layer of paint that you've done, then it's adding the detail, and then going on to the final piece. And make sure you document that, the creating process. It could be through photographs, or you might want to make a little short film of little snippets of you creating this final piece. So through photographs or a short little video of you working on your final piece or creating this final piece. Display your final piece, image of your final piece on a separate slide, and make sure the image is clear and in focus to really show those details off. Okay, you don't want to take a photo and it's all blurred, because we won't be able to see all those really nice scientific illustrations that you've done on it. Here, oh yes, I did put them in. So just an image here of the development. So you're starting off, you might change the colors as you're going, you might add a few little more details. So it's really good to show the whole process and the whole outcome, where you've added the more of the tone, the details, those little notes that you might want to do. So here's an example of a student's work with their development. Oh, and here's another example of a final piece. This is drawings scanned in, digitally edited, layered, fantastic other way. Instead of, this was an oil painting, another really interesting final piece for the illustration science of drawing project. I think you can probably see where the inspirations come and all the artist inspiration for these pieces of work. And that's the main thing, going from the start, from the artist research all the way to the final piece. And then when you can see the inspirations going through, it's fantastic. You see the whole process. So I hope that's helped with giving you some inspiration. The final slide in the project is the evaluation slide. You're going to do one of these for all the projects. So after your final piece, you've got the image on the slide just the image of your piece of work, so it's really bold and that's all we can see. Then the final slide is the evaluation slide, and you need to answer the following questions: is what have I achieved and learned during the project? What are the strengths and weaknesses within the process, the creative process? Have you created or did loads of artist research, and then maybe there wasn't much idea development and then you went straight into the final piece? So what were the strengths and the weaknesses? Or it could be that you've really enjoyed working with digital media and you've never done it before. So really say what are the strengths and weaknesses, because it's fantastic to see your own reflection. How do I feel about the final outcome? Did you feel like maybe you've rushed it a little bit at the end, or do you think you've completely put all the detail and you're really happy with it? So explain, like, how do you feel about it? What improvements could you make if you were given a bit more time? That's an interesting one. It doesn't need to be on your final piece. It could be, as I say, another part of the project that you might have rushed a little bit to move on to the next part. So what improvements could you do if you had a little bit more time? Maybe it's more experimenting with different materials. Maybe you wanted to do printmaking and make a lino print, but you just didn't have time. And you can maybe do that onto the next project after this. Which materials and processes have you explored? And what action do you, what can you do to improve next time? As I said, if you missed out on the lino printing, maybe you could do that in the next project, just to say you've tried a new technique and that's ticked another little box. Are there any new skills you want to work on? This could be more the intricate drawing. Maybe you've never drawn like that with the scientific, really looking at all those details. Maybe you've realized, oh, actually, I want to do that a little bit more in my next projects. Really look at all those really interesting patterns and details when you look at close-up images. So that's your evaluation. I think, the one thing, that isn't on there is make sure you make a note of your artists who have inspired you as well. Just note down that who's inspired you, what artists you have taken elements, what part of the what elements of the artist's work you've put into your final piece. And then step 11 is the Harvard format bibliography, which some of you have started on the photography project, but this will be, if you do this for project 2, this will be the first time you sort of create this Harvard format bibliography. So my top tip with that, it's the final slide of the projects. Going forward, you'll be doing a bibliography for all the projects. My top tip is creating the Harvard format bibliography at the same time as your artist research. For all your projects going forward in the course, make sure you're doing the bibliography at the same time. So make a note of the author, the date, the website, and make a note of when you accessed that website, because that's the final bit of the bibliography, is this final access date. Okay, so make a note of all those elements. So the link, the website link, the author, the date, and the access date as well. Make a note of all of that. If you copy those details, put that on your bibliography slide as you're doing the artist research. And what you could do is copy that at the very end, copy all that information into an AI platform. So it could be ChatGPT or another one. And and copy, paste all of that information and just make a note saying, can you, well, change this into Harvard format bibliography, and it should do it for you really quickly. And hopefully you've got to double check just in case. Hopefully it'll all be in alphabetical order as well. So you don't need to do that yourself. It should format it in an alphabetical order as well for each artist. Okay, so that's my little top tip for the bibliography. Create that, or make a note of quickly make a note of all the resources that you've used at the same time as you're doing the step one, which is the artist research. Does that make sense? I know I've whizzed through this, whizzed through it all.